Our theme of this week, gentlemen, is how to reinvent yourself.
I'm gonna tell you about a woman whose heart is sunshine, whose body burned hot. I'm gonna tell you about a woman who's cold as tundra with some frozen eyes. I can tell by the way she moves.
Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to the C-Note Show. It's Monday, June 8th, 2020. This is brought to you by Great Men Move Mountains, and you're here because this is where we do our daily work. This is where we do our daily work of how to be a man in the world today, how to understand what's going on in our relationships, because either we're separated in the same house, we're trying to reconcile, or she said, you know, I want space, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, and you're wondering, what the fuck is going on? Or you're partway through this journey, or you've come out the other side and you want to support men like I do and like Cynthia does, right? And like Andy does and like Jason does, of course. And as far as what's out the other side is something we're going to talk about today. What does it mean to be out the other side? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? First of all, when I started this work, I didn't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. My face was in the mud, right? And so this is where we do our daily work. Even when your face is in the mud, that's why we're here. And you come here also because you get the masculine perspective from a professional coach, and you get the feminine perspective from a professional coach, my co-host, Miss Cynthia Cruz. Good morning, Cynthia.
Hey, good morning and happy Monday. Thank you so much for inviting me into this space. It is truly an honor every day.
Thank you, Cynthia. Fantastic. Our theme of this week, gentlemen, is how to reinvent yourself. Well, we're going to get into, I've got a clip from Office Space, the printer scene from Office Space this morning. We're going to start off on a Monday. I've got a couple of TED Talk clips. I've got an Eckhart Tolle clip, Tolle or Tolle, however you pronounce it, clip. And here we share our daily work. We do our daily work. And our theme of this week is how to reinvent yourself. And we stopped with a cliffhanger on Friday with this post from the forum. Fuck it, let's just get a divorce. I can't do anything around you. Can't talk, can't work around the house, pretend to parent to your gold standards. You accept so much help that I can't even work. And accepting that help, you turn around and attack me for doing too much. You complain that I treat you like you're feeble. Well, here's the secret that I hold back. You are feeble. Don't want me to think that? Then do stuff. Don't blame me for doing it first. Don't attack me for volunteering. Put on your big girl panties and say, I'd like to do this. That's my big girl panty voice. I'd like to do this. Or just do it. It's getting to be not worth even being around you. If you're trying to get me to leave, then congrats. If I give you a sorry buddy pat on the back, you recoil in disgust. It's clear that you find me repulsive. You've been the problem in our relationship just as much as me when it was really bad, but you've been the sole problem lately. Go ahead and file the papers, get the mediator. I'm losing interest in you. Oh my gosh, I'm losing interest in you. Sometimes it feels good to be angry. Sometimes it feels good to be a gangsta like from Office Space.
With the resurrection, this one will heal, cause it's die, motherfuckers die. Ghetto, nothing but the ghetto. That's 1 foot pattern. Touch on subjects, motherfuckers read about. I touch on this is real too, because it's time, motherfucker die, motherfuckers die, I guarantee you fright, cause I'm the virgin.
Oh, sometimes it feels good to just be angry. It feels better. So Cynthia, I'd love for you to unmute yourself and jump in. You know, sometimes it feels good to be angry because why? What are we elevating from moving into anger?
I think anger is a really powerful tool. It's a great differentiator when from that place of like collapse, guilt, pain, loss, lack, I'm not getting what I need, someone's treating me wrong. And I mean, the real pain of someone not finding us, you know, valuable or significant. And if we were to always be in that place and always working from that place, at least I would be like in the path just collapsed and not able to move forward. Anger is this incredible gift of an energy that's higher than that helps us, you know, put a stake in the sand and basically say, fuck no, I'm not doing this. And we don't want to get stuck there because then that doesn't move us forward, but it's definitely a way to keep moving on the path and moving from a place of passivity to a place of action.
Passivity into a place of action. Yeah, that actually does help us be a warrior in the world and in our own lives, that action of the warrior, right? But the masochist and the sadist, the masochist being, oh, I can't do anything right. Everything happens to me. Okay. Or the sadist of, oh my God, I'm going to go out and beat the world. I'm just going to beat myself maybe into submission as well. Or do this like, all right, well then let's fight. All right. The gloves are off. That's the shadow poles of the warrior, right? And like you said, Cynthia, that often feels better than being in complete apathy or shutdown. I'm going to ask you guys, I want to ask you on this Monday morning to put on the table, we don't need to necessarily fix, but I want you to put on the table any frustrations that you have today. It's the start of our week. Our theme is how to reinvent yourself. I have some clips I'm going to get into as well. One is about how being separated causes us, or we're being separated is one of the worst places to be as far as happiness goes, right? It's down on the list of single, married, divorced, separated is way down over here. And that's where I found myself in 2015. And that's when I started my own personal work. And all through 2016 is when I did my work with Steve Horstman, Good Guys to Great Men. And I've been doing this professionally since 2017. I volunteered for Shoulder to Shoulder, which is one of the ways, I should say, to reinvent yourself is through volunteerism, getting out there. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. So let me come back. Andy said, oh, that gentleman's so in his monkey mind. And Jason and Cynthia and I had talked about this last week as well, about being in fear of the future, even though it's a positive thing that might be coming. Cynthia's talked about that as well. So gentlemen, I'd love for you to unmute yourself. I'm just going to pause and see how long it takes someone to unmute themselves and share. Put something on the table. Put something maybe that you're frustrated about, or that you've maybe even moved into anger about, and you were just kind of allowing it to happen, or in apathy, and you've moved into frustration or anger, and you want to just put it on the table for us, right? This isn't to beat anyone up. This isn't to do any kind of like rage therapy or anything like that, but it's to own where we are right now. So who's ready to own where they are right now, good or bad? But if you want to put a frustration on the table, I'd love for you to share. So let's see how long it takes for someone to unmute themselves.
So Jason asked the question in the chat, how much judgment do we feel about anger?
That's a good question, gentlemen. Do you judge yourself if you feel anger? I want to see how long it takes for someone to unmute themselves today on this Monday morning, or afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world.
I can say something that's not good about holding in anger.
Yeah, please, like, Andy, go for it.
Anger.
Yeah, Andy, go for it, please.
Whereas, for me, I think certainly for me, when I used to feel really angry and frustrated towards my wife, and it was because I wasn't putting my boundaries up in place, then it used to go deep down inside me, and it used to stay there and build up until one day a bomb could explode, and I'd start punching a fridge door, or without anyone seeing it, but just the release had to come out, and I just ended up punching something or going outside in my car, gritting my teeth and screaming my head off. But now I see it as if you can use it as a tool, and you can use anger to let you know that there's something inside you that's important to you, and it needs to be expressed. And so I try to see it that way. So that's my view on like anger, and it's a practice. I'm not perfect at this. I know like the rules on that, but it's hard sometimes. But I do try at least now to use my anger as like, I'm feeling fucking angry here now. I'm not going to hold this in. I need to work out what's going on, why I'm feeling it, and I need to express it within my boundaries that I create for me. That's my practice.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I love that. I love you for jumping in. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to go and mute you just so we can for the sound. Yeah, that's fantastic. And the awareness that you have is what you're sharing, the awareness of that. And how do you get it out is you're choosing how you get it out. You're not just reacting, you're responding in a way, in a mature way that you're confident about, right? I've shared the story about putting my elbow into the bathroom door and smashing the bathroom door and feeling like an idiot afterwards. Your story about punching the fridge. I think we've all been there. It's embarrassing to share those things, how we acted in those ways. At least maybe I shouldn't project. I'm embarrassed to share that I put my elbow into a bathroom door off of frustration around my job and stress and covert contracts that I had in my relationship. And, my 3-year-old son isn't acting perfectly right now. Well, that's no excuse, right? That's no excuse for me to act the way that I did. And that was a catalyst for me. Remembering that story, remembering that feeling of how ashamed I was to do that was a catalyst for me to never want to do that again. And yes, it's a practice, but that's been a teacher for me, that memory. Absolutely. Yeah, and Cynthia, I'd love for you to honor the chatting. Looks like Walter and Brett have jumped in and Jason's jumped in. Please.
Yes, and thank you so much for all of you that are sharing. I wasn't always aware of this, but I'm starting to understand that there's kind of a double standard that in women's work, it's like, oh, yes, go out to the car and scream and yell. And it's like, you're getting it out and you're emoting. And that's a really encouraged thing. And I am understanding that, and this is my understanding, that in our culture that is not so celebrated or supported with men. So I really appreciate all of you that are sharing very much. Walter says, sorry, I can't speak, but something that really gets to me is her having her phone and even chatting while we are having a serious conversation. Brett says, my anger is a sign that something isn't right and needs to be addressed. May or may not need time to get clarity in what they sign in and exactly why I'm angry, what the sign is and why I'm angry. But it's something that's a sign that needs to be examined. And Brett continued to say, my wife hated conflict and always held stuff inwards. I can relate to that. Big contributor to our downfall. I avoided conflict too, just no good to avoid anger.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. And thank you, gentlemen. What I wanted to dive into, as we do here in the show, we dive into deep shit and then we bounce out with a perspective and a plan of how we handle that in a mature way, in an attractive way, so we can get more loving affection in our life. That's why we're here. We love women. We love relationship. We want to know how to do that skillfully. And that's why we're here. We do our daily work here. So gentlemen, what I'm realizing is you guys are so aware, and I should not have expected absolutely anything else from our amazing men that are here, Cynthia. You guys are so aware that this anger is a sign to look underneath, and it's not just to necessarily blame her. The gentleman from this post is brand new as of something like 4 or 5 days ago to our forum, and he admits in other posts within the forum of his own self and his own lack of boundaries in the past and his own covert contracts and expectations that recovering nice guys have a practice to always work through. And he feels like he's, near the beginning of his journey. And other men in the forum have been so supportive of him. I love that so much. Yeah, Iain, you raised your hand. Please come on in. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi, Jeff. Yeah, I find that the sadness and the anger, two emotions that for me tend to come similar times. So I get a sadness over maybe looking back and what the connection we did have and seeing that that's no longer there. And then the anger comes in, perceiving that she's walking away and leaving everything that we've built behind. And that's what generates this anger for me internally. And but you talk about controlling it. What I have found though is that this comes along in waves, and for me to control and use these emotions, I find very difficult because it just takes me over. It's a mist that comes down, and I find it difficult to be able to utilize these emotions for any good for myself. It's just something that just takes me and washes me away for 5-10 minutes, hitting the cushions, and then I calm down, talk to someone, and then I'm back to where I was.
Yeah, Iain, if you don't mind me asking, and this is a question for every man that's here and my own self, I've had to do this journey. So let me ask you, Iain, what does it physically feel like in your body when that anger starts to come over you? And first of all, let me rewind and say the anger and the sadness together. I want to honor that. And often one covers the other, right? The anger covers the sadness. And so thank you for sharing that. When that anger comes, what does it feel like in your body for you?
There's two parts to it. I think there's a resentment. That's one part of it, which is more of a targeted feeling of anger towards her. And then the second part that I'm feeling is a rage, and that's maybe your Hulk. That's your uncontrollable, just wanting to shout and just to scream and just to really just let it out. That doesn't seem to get me anywhere. The resentment's more focused. I mean, it's not a hate, but it's a really negative, feels a negative emotion coming out. So, and they're emotions that, I mean, I've been a calm person over many years, and these things never experienced this intensity for a long, long time, certainly.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to jump to the boredom, which you mentioned. This is our boredom exercise, and I want to ask you a follow-up on that. So the boredom, you talked about resentments, maybe, that's on here as well. So some of these are going to be our negative thoughts, our monkey mind thoughts that go on in our head, or our little boy thoughts that, how could she do this? I've been such a great man in the world, and I've done so many things for our family, and look what I've sacrificed, and look how much I've worked, and look what I do for her. And that's what our question was saying. Look how much I do, and growing resentment. And the other one of the explosive sort of rage, anger within the boardroom here. Thank you for that. And so, Iain, let me ask, in addition to that, so physiologically, the resentment may feel different in your body than the rage, which I would expect those to feel differently. So generally, there's 4 areas in our body where we're going to feel. And so it's our head, our throat, our chest, and our stomach. And for me, I feel energy shoot up the back of my neck, and then really a heaviness and kind of an intense energy in the back of my head. And I get tunnel vision with my eyes, right? It's like locking onto prey with my eyes and scrunching my face. So I feel it here, neck and then head. Where do you feel let's start with rage. That's generally more powerful, so we can feel that. Or maybe the resentments you feel. But what does it feel like in your body? Can you put yourself in that spot?
Yeah, I think you need to. It picks you up, and it makes you stand up and just want to move around. I think that's certainly arms and just the urge to hit something, and that's just really just want to be moving, and that's where I feel it first. I think, and just an impulse to push yourself up. Mm.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. So when you feel that, can you catch yourself have you done that for yourself? Have you caught yourself when you feel that wanting to move, you recognize or you're aware, here comes rage, and you're able to notice that and do something? Have you noticed that?
It's generally come afterwards. So it's something that certainly when I'm talking to my wife, it's not projection, but it's being calm, it's being in present and knowing what I'm talking about and being confident what I'm talking about, and if not, putting it off. But it's normally when I'm looking back on that. So it's generally something I'm keeping for my own self to express when I'm either on my own or in a safer place, rather than putting it out there in front of certainly my wife, or my children even.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and I appreciate that. For me, and so back in 2015, when I started to do this work, Iain, for me, it was progress when I went from, I'm angry at you, just like this question today, this poster, I'm angry at you, to I'm angry, was actually a big progression, okay? And I'm still like, in that moment. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't angry all day long, okay? I'm presenting a story here. But in that moment of I'm angry and owning that anger myself, owning my response, owning my own agency, right? Like owning myself was a giant progression from I'm a victim of her, or I'm persecuting her, and owning myself was a giant thing. So what you said in there about I'm noticing it afterwards, that's where we start. Right. And I think Andy would agree with this too. It's like, and that's where we would start. And I want to ask Jason in a moment. So thank you. And I really appreciate that. I want to come back to you later in the show. Thank you very much. So Jason had mentioned Well, there's some more chat going on, which I love, but I want to come back, Jason, if you're able to unmute yourself, what you said. How about judgment of that anger, right? So tell us about that, and tell us what you faced in that time of judgment.
Well, like I shared with the guys before, I was in an abusive marriage. And for me, anger scared the crap out of me and made me feel like that was a nasty, nasty part of me. Mostly because I felt if I ever shouted back, if I ever fought back, I'd kill her. That's not a nice thing to say. I'm embarrassed to even say that in front of Cynthia, to tell you the truth, but that's where I was. And so I judged it as a completely nasty, horrible part of me. So you were talking about your progression, Jeff, and I went through a similar progression. Mine had to be the judgment part of anger is bad. That was where I started. Anger was something I couldn't feel. When I finally allowed myself to feel anger, it was, yes, I'm angry. That's it. I'm not evil. I'm not anything. I'm angry. It's there.
Yeah.
And when I finally got to the point was I'm experiencing anger, it's not me, but I'm experiencing anger. It's a part of my monkey mind or my head that's going on that has nothing to do with who I am as a person. I can actually express that anger in her presence. We were, trying our best to co-parent and all that kind of stuff. I could actually express my anger in her presence and trust myself that I wouldn't hit her, that I wouldn't shout insults and be the person that I know that I'm not.
Yeah. I'm experiencing anger right now. Yeah. So like you're making me angry too. I'm angry and judging myself and the perceived danger or real danger and the danger that society is telling me of my toxic masculinity. We can keep going on that road. And then back to I'm experiencing anger. I'm the witness of my anger. Yeah, Jason?
Yeah, definitely. It was vital to me to recover, to get angry though. That contracted feeling, that depressed feeling is where I go under stress. Some people go right to anger when they're under stress. I go into that contracted, depressed feeling. It's a path between that and any kind of positive energy that you can have. So for me, it was anger had to come in order for me to be responsible, for me to grow from being responsible to caring, and any other higher energy. It had to come. I could not have recovered if I had learned to be one with my anger. It's something that I know a lot of guys struggle with, and maybe saying that'll help some guys out there. 100%. The minute I knew I was going to be okay was when I could be angry. And I went to the mountains and hit things and bloodied my knuckles like you would not believe. Shouted, screamed, threw things. Years of repression thrown out in a safe place where I wouldn't hurt anybody. I wouldn't be here if I couldn't have gotten angry.
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much. I'm going to hit mute for the moment. So first of all, you're brave as hell to share that with us. I love it because of to your own point, the potential judgments of that, right? And guys, that's why we're here. That's why we're in this safe space of great men move mountains. Go into the mountains, throw some shit around in a safe space if you need to. And that's what we're doing here is throwing things around in a safe space, throwing emotions around in a safe space. And that's what we do on our private forum as well. I have a graphic that I actually posted as a file on our private forum. I think it was Friday or over this weekend. Cynthia and I actually worked a lot of hours this weekend in a fun way. And this morning I said, it's so great we didn't work this weekend, and because we didn't have a Sunday show. Like, it felt really good and refreshing. We didn't work this weekend. And she said, yeah, we did. We worked like 6 hours each day. You just said, oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, that was fun. It's fun stuff. So let me bounce over to you, Cynthia. I want to ask you a question about what Jason was saying. So you're here as a professional, as you guys know, professional coach, and you've just seen a lot of vulnerability from men sharing their anger, sharing the expression of potential shutdown, and then the developing up into the feeling of anger instead of being shut down. And I'm going to show this graphic here in a second right now. And so I'd love for you to jump in and what that feels like for a woman. So this is a scale of attitudes and thoughts. And I posted on the forum. There's more details there. By the way, guys, if you're not on our forum yet, go to greatmenmovemountains.com/Facebook and request to be invited in, because you need to be personally invited in. Or you guys that are in can invite a friend. Okay, that's something you can do too, and I have to accept them in. So Cynthia, as Jason was talking about, he is moving from shame and numbness and powerlessness and hopelessness, okay, up the scale to anger. And he's talking about how that was a key part of him opening up and developing as a man so he could move up into the higher feelings. So talk with us, as if you would, as a woman and a professional, of how can a man, let's say, present this to the woman in his life so that he's not asking her to fix it. He's not sounding like a victim. He's not coming across as he's blaming her either, in that he's owning his shit and moving up and going up into the mountains, right? I could say what I tell my one-on-one clients, but as a woman and a professional in this field, what's a skillful way that he can own his own stuff, own his experience, as Jason said, and go take care of himself in a way that she basically offers him that space in a healthy way?
Well, I incredibly appreciate this conversation and the willingness to walk in the shadow that we all have. And it only takes power when we try to push it down. So your question, Jeff, to share with a woman, like, I am having this, this experience right now. I'm feeling very frustrated. And I know why. I know what this is triggering in me. I know the thoughts I'm having. And it's really, really bothering me. And then to say, like, your plan of, I'm going to go take some space and process this and move this. I'm going to go to the mountains, and then I would love to talk about this when I return. It's it actually reminds me a little bit of you framing the hero's journey, that you are going to leave and you are going to go on a journey of your own and come back with a tool, a gift to then integrate into your current life. And whether or not she takes offense to that, like, you shouldn't leave, or she collapses a little because you are in an angry place, that is okay, because you are going on this journey. And the whole purpose and the why is to walk into the shadow, to bring up a new strength with you on the other side, a new understanding and awareness, and then bring that back as a tool and a gift to your current life, so that you are not a victim. You're not stuffing the shadow, and you're not having to live a life in our current culture of a box that you as a man can't be in an angry state because maybe that's too big, too loud, too aggressive.
I think that's so amazing. That hero's journey, Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. I'm actually listening to his audiobook. I read the book years ago, and I'm listening to the audiobook Hero with 1,000 Faces of Joseph Campbell right now. And a lot of it is quite poetic and deep, and which takes basically listening to one sentence at a time. And a lot of it also owns and honors a man's journey in this way that now sometimes it's shoved down, and we just want to not look the dragon in the face. We just want to lock the monster away in the dungeon, but that shit goes down and lifts weights in the basement and comes back angry and stronger and rageful in the future. And so to Jason's point, and Jason, if you don't mind unmuting yourself again, I'd love for you to explain your progression after that. To Jason's point, he went out into the woods and released the monster out there. And so how did you then, let me ask, how did you integrate that for yourself? Here on the show, we talk about the boardroom, we talk about perspective and a plan, the tools that we show. But for yourself, how did you then integrate it and come back into the world, you know, in your hero's journey, re-enter the world with this new knowledge? How did you do that?
I want to say, I want to have this really complex, wonderful answer, but the reality was I just allowed myself to feel something that I wouldn't allow myself to feel. And in the process of that, allowed myself to feel a lot of other things, like hope, like this feeling of direction, like this understanding that there is nothing in the world that can kill me. I'm struggling with one that I think is going to kill me right now, which is interesting in this context. Working through that one right now in my head. The progress then for me was also to understand I had this big knowing that depression, which is where I normally reside, feels devoid of energy. It feels like there is nothing going on in me. Anger animated me, like Iain was saying. It felt like I had to raise an energy, and then I just got this weird concept. What if I were to raise my energy? And all the stuff that Steve was saying at the time when I was coaching with him, and everything about taking care of yourself, doing things for you, form your own frame, and all that, it started to make sense in the fact that, oh, I have to take care of myself, and I have to raise my energy. And when I started doing that, I could feel compassion, I can feel hope, joy. I can start looking at the world with opportunity, all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't some big process that I went through. It was just a knowing.
Yeah. So that's incredible. Oh, by the way, you did explain the process as well, which is like owning yourself and bringing your energy up, right? And I love the knowing at the end. So I want to share. Actually, I put down a quote from Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces that I just referred to from chapter 3 I was listening to over this weekend. And it applies directly what Jason's saying and what we're talking about now. Enlightenment. So Jason's saying that basically that birthing or that awakening of himself, enlightenment cannot be communicated, meaning I can't just talk you through it. I can't talk your way to nirvana. Enlightenment cannot be communicated, but only the way to enlightenment can be spoken, can be taught, right? The ritual mythologies that are but guides to the brink of transcendent illumination. So our mythology are guides to the brink, right? The final step to which must be taken by each in his own silent experience. So as Jason just said there, it's, you know, you can't explain it. And I think Joseph Campbell's putting into words from, I believe that it was written in the 1960s, that you can be taught how to become to the brink, but then you must experience that final threshold yourself in your own unique experience. And that's why it's hard to put words behind that, right, guys? Phenomenal. So I'm going to show right now a clip from Eckhart Tolle where he talks about, there's a gentleman in the audience who's been doing nothing for 1.5 years. He's a younger guy. And he said, basically, that I haven't been enlightened yet. So what's going on? I've been doing nothing like you did, Eckhart, and I haven't, been enlightened. And he's trying to follow a description to find enlightenment. And here's Eckhart's response to him. I'm going to share this right now. It's about 2 minutes long. Here we go.
It's too easy. So the suffering is, I mentioned before, the best motivation for liberation is the desire to escape from suffering, or realizing the possibility that it's possible to be free of suffering. And that's why the Buddha chose that term to describe his teaching, which is very wise. What's my teaching about? The Buddha said, I'll tell you what it is about. It's not about enlightenment, it's not about achieving God realization, it's not about that. It's the end of suffering. So it seems that he attracted mostly people who were at that stage where that meant something to them. I don't know if you are at that stage where the end of suffering means enough to you to provide the intensity for awakening. I was suffering. That was the motivation. I didn't even have a name for awakening. The wonderful news, though, is life always gives you what you need. And it could well be that if you continue your life in this way, the way in which you live will create more and more suffering. Perhaps the loneliness will become unbearable. And so then the suffering of the loneliness might drive you into a relationship. And then something may go wrong in the relationship, and then the relationship will become unbearable. And then you will seek out another situation, and something will go wrong there. And then that will become unbearable. And then suddenly you will want to be free of suffering. And there you have the motivation. So whether you carry on the way you are now, fine. Life will give you what you need. Or if you think, okay, I'll try a relationship, great too. You will find the necessary suffering to get you there.
Life will offer you the suffering that you need to motivate you toward awakening. Otherwise, it will continue to offer you opportunities. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I took a quote from those 2 minutes there. The best motivation for liberation is the desire to escape from suffering, or realizing the possibility that it's possible to be free of suffering. That's why the Buddha chose that term, suffering, to describe his teaching. Not about enlightenment, not about achieving God realization. It's the end of suffering. Does the end of suffering mean enough to you to provide the intensity for awakening? The wonderful news is life always gives you what you need. So I had enough suffering in 2015 to find this work, to find a local men's group that Steve Horstman ran. I was fortunate and lucky enough that he had just started it a couple months prior. So I'm one of the OG here. I've been doing that men's group for over 5 years at this point, or going on 5 years this year. We meet every 2 weeks here locally. And that's one of the reasons that motivated me and motivated Cynthia. When she and I met professionally 4 years ago, she was already working with men, right? So she and I have been developing this practice for 4 years at this point. And that's why we love to do this show. This is our heart that we give forward. And I so honor you guys here. So Cynthia, let's take a moment to honor our men. I honor you guys here for being here, doing your daily work here, learning these tools, bringing your shit to the men, right? Bringing your stuff here to this safe space. So Cynthia, who do you see here in our participant section? Please, let's honor our guys.
Oh gosh, I see Joseph and Walters. Brett was posting in the chat. Patrick's here. Rob, Randy, it's so good to see you. Andy, I love the guidance and wisdom you post in the chat continually, as well as your stories. Jason and Kent and Iain. It's wonderful.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I'm going to jump to a quote that Cynthia said this weekend that I wanted to share on our show today. Could it be that in the moment someone tells you something you are not, you actually discover who you really are? So in the moment someone tells you something you are not the spouse that I thought you were. You're not the man that I thought you were. You're not, right? You can be aware of the anger, not necessarily expressing the anger at her or in this moment, not exploding in this moment, but you can be a witness of it. And that can lead you to discover the man you are. That can lead you to the man who does this work. That can lead you to understand what your values are, what your boundaries are. And you can also, it leads you to be the man that no longer wants to be in that drama, in that tragedy of a Shakespearean play, that she's, let's say, trying to cast you within. If you know you are the man that's doing this work. So many men, Cynthia, come to us once they've started doing this work, maybe they're 1 or 2 or 3 months in, and they say, she's not recognizing all the good work that I'm doing. right? She's still trying to hand me that costume, that pirate costume in the Shakespearean play of the tragedy and of the drama that she sees within her life. And she's trying to give us this pirate costume. But I look down and I don't see a pirate costume. I see the man that I am over here in my belief about who I'm being in the world. And so when you said in that moment, you actually discover who you really are, share more with us, please, about that, of how we can relate to the drama or Shakespearean play that's going on in her life and the one that we are creating within our life as well. How can we think about that?
Sure. Well, I was very much the nice girl, right? All of the similar tendencies, just in the more feminine way of doing that. And anytime anyone, a family member, a partner would tell me something that I should do better or wasn't doing enough of, or wasn't making someone feel great to be around me, I always was checking, like, because it's about there must be something, there must be truth in that, right? There must be something that I need to fix. And it was exhausting. And actually, the more I listened to how other people were defining me and using that as, my definition, the more collapsed I would become. And then I would have partners or family members, tell me they didn't want to be around me because I was so collapsed. So it kind of felt like being in a rock and a hard place. I think the extreme power in that is when someone's holding up a mirror and you look in the mirror and you realize that, what I know to be true is different than what they're projecting on me. There is a embodiment and an emboldenment that comes over you of, I am not what they are saying. I know what I am. And then even if there's things in there that you want to shift and change and grow into, it's a place of pushing off. It's a place where the water meets the riverbank and you can stand in definition. And the power of knowing that someone else's opinion does not paint you with the color that they think is correct.
I love that. It does not paint you with that color. Dennis, are you able to unmute yourself? Dennis said that Cynthia is correct, and I'm going through it now. Dennis, are you able to unmute yourself?
My ex is, I wanted me to be something that I didn't want to be anymore. And I internalized my anger and frustration instead of sprouting it out and let it come out and deal with it. And my ex, in turn, turned around and did her anger and frustration through my daughter as a middleman.
I see, yeah.
Which led to a fight with my daughter. And now my ex is doing the same thing. And I've set boundaries and limitations that both of them are not liking now, that, and I don't care. If you don't like it, my ex is gone. I don't have to deal with her. My daughter, I'm to the position, you're 23 years old. If you don't like how I want to live, that's your decision. It's not my decision. It's not my shit. It's your shit. And that's how I handle it now. If I get it, the anger and frustration always comes back. There are times when I'm dealing with my daughter that she sounds like her mother.
Yeah.
And it can trigger it at any time. Every weekend I'm with her, she manages to trigger it once or twice. And then I have to pull back and go, whoa, now I can feel it when she's triggering. And I just go, okay, fine. Do whatever the F you want. I don't care. Go home. You don't want to be here? Go home. I don't need your stuff.
Yeah, Dennis, I'll jump in. I'm going to jump in for just 1 second, then I want to ask you another question. So with me, you've probably heard me say this, that my ex didn't want to co-parent at all. She literally said, I'm not interested in co-parenting with you. I'm going to do whatever I want, when our son was 11 years old, when we started sharing custody. And she literally let him play Xbox all night long and everything. right? Like whatever. So when he came over to my house, the fact that I have any rules or expectations at all makes me an asshole. And I had to let go of the fight. Now I still upheld boundaries, like you said, Dennis, but I wasn't trying to be right. I stopped, like you just said, I stopped trying to be right in the moment, right?
Yes.
Like allow the emotions to happen, but then I upheld my boundaries in a way, right? So what helped you realize that you could just drop the rope and not fight in that moment, and you didn't need to be right in that moment? What helped you realize that?
When I realized once I left, because my marriage was over a long time ago, I've never come to these groups attempting to save my marriage. My marriage was done a long time ago. So it was to save another relationship, as Cynthia well knows. I don't want to make the same mistakes I made in my first relationship with a very special lady that I have now. Okay. So the realization came to me that if I didn't set boundaries or I didn't deal with my emotion, it was affecting me in the underlying relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
My underlying relationship has been ongoing up until 9 months ago, along with my marriage, because it was the typical good guy. I went out and had an affair. Okay. And the affair turned into a love affair.
Yeah.
And I realized that my marriage was, at that time, I realized my marriage was over. I just didn't realize how to get out of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. I'm going to go ahead and press mute for 1 second. So what I heard right there is that you didn't want to continue those old patterns, right? The old relationship was done. Yeah. I see you nodding. Thank you. And you don't want to continue those patterns with your daughter, right? And you want to be this different man going forward. Thank you so much. Yeah. And how our old relationship ends, whether, one person, I experienced infidelity, whether one person cheats or not, or whatever the catalyst is that blows up the final bridge, right? Or there's some kind of explosive anger, whatever the final giant catalyst is. For me, I realized that I didn't have the strong boundaries that I should have had, that I wanted to have all along the way, right? If we don't have strong boundaries, I was just listening to Mark Manson this morning, and I'll share some more Mark Manson tomorrow. He's an author and a speaker. If you don't know who that is, markmanson.net. He's got awesome stuff. Talks about if your relationship has a lot of highs, like it's great, and then it's terrible, and then it's fantastic, and then there's a giant fight and it's terrible again, that you probably don't have strong boundaries within the relationship. Like that's not a good sign. And when it becomes terrible again and explodes, that's when the relationships end or breakups and getting back together happen. So
can I interject to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the what's going on in my new relationship, because when I initially started it, I had no boundaries. And now, as Cynthia is teaching me, and she's been wonderful, as she says, I know how to run from step 1 to step 50, but I don't know how to do 1, 2, and 3. And Cynthia's been teaching me how to play with 1, 2, and 3 on a regular basis. And it's funny because I can see different changes, and I thank Cynthia for that. I'm not trying to sell what Cynthia does. I'm just saying Cynthia gives a perspective that I found is not available with a lot of men's coaching or groups. There's no perspective from the female side.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Very cool. I'm going to go ahead and mute you. Thank you for sharing that. And what you just said about recognizing, again, you don't want to repeat the patterns, and you're working on those boundaries, and that you want a mentor to help you with that. That actually segues right into, I want to share from, let's say, which way do I want to go with this? I want to share a TED Talk about how to not take things personally. But before I do that, I realize we're getting close to the end of our show. And Cynthia, I want to give you another opportunity to open up your mic. And if there's something on your mind that you want to put on the table for us men right now, we've talked about different topics today around anger and boundaries and being present and being a witness for our anger and our emotions. What would you like for the men to know from your feminine and professional experience and perspective?
Yeah, I I loved what Jason said about when he could express anger, felt like it was okay to let some anger out. He could also feel the other emotions like hope. And I shared a little bit of my story of, taking other people's opinions and judgments of me and kind of collapsing and stuffing down my emotional state. And I have found this in the past when I have been in partnerships where a gentleman is working really hard to not feel angry, or push down a sense of what he might feel as a loss or a judgment, whether he's trying to fit into the box our culture's created, whether he was trying to protect me from his emotions. It's like I could no longer feel him anymore. It was like if he's not angry, if he can't be in an angry place and express it in his hero's journey, he also can't be in a place of full compassion and desire with me. And that was really hard to connect to, someone who was having to push everything down. So I wanted to offer that we walk into the shadow because on the other side in the light, we are appreciative of how bright that is. When you can be in the shadow in your journey, your light, your passion on the other side is intoxicating and sexy and attractive, and makes connecting with you, it's like an elixir of connection. So I wanted to offer that.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That was much better than any TED Talk we could have. I'd absolutely love to feature you saying that and honoring these guys and recognizing that our emotional range also includes that passion that Cynthia talked about. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I love that very much. So I'll save the how to not take things personally TED Talk for tomorrow, because definitely you can't follow Cynthia. You can't follow Cynthia anyway. And so I'm going to do our closing credits here in a second. And then I've got a clip. I've got the Did You Get the Memo from Office Space 1999. One of my favorite movies anyway from I graduated high school in 97. And this came out in 99. So one of my favorite movies of the college era for me personally. So Cynthia, let's honor our men. We'll use a cliffhanger on the TED Talk I want to show for tomorrow on how to not take things personally. And then I'll share this clip from Office Space, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for today and all that you shared so honestly and raw. I am in deep, deep respect, and I really appreciate your honesty and the vision that you're holding for not only your life, not only for the people in your life, but for this incredible, incredible group of men. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. And I agree with Andy, who just chatted. Cynthia, thanks for being here. You have such a beautiful way with words. I agree. Phenomenal.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I'll share a clip from Office Space here in 1 second. This has been the C-Note Show, brought to you by Great Men Move Mountains and greatmenmovemountains.com. If you don't have our free stuff yet, go to greatmenmovemountains.com and click on the free content tab. We have a free 45-minute audiobook of how to get more sex, love, connection, hugs, and intimacy. And we have a free 10-day program of how to solve the number one cause of divorce in 10 days. How to solve the number one cause of divorce in 10 days. And that's a free program on our website as well.
We have sort of a problem here. Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS reports.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah. You see, we're putting the cover sheets on all TPS reports now before they go out. Did you see the memo about this? If you could just go ahead and make sure you do that from now on, that would be great. And I'll go ahead and make sure you get another copy of that memo. Okay?
Yeah, no, I have the memo. I've got it. It's right.
Spanish Point we discovered a Spanish shipwreck off the coast of
Milton.
Spain.
Hi. Could you turn that down just a little?
I was told that I could listen to the radio at a reasonable volume from 9 to 11.
Yeah, no, I know you're allowed to.
I told Bill that if Sandra's going to listen to her headphones while she's falling, then I should be able to listen to the radio while I'm collating. So I don't see why I should have to turn down the radio.
Hi, Peter. What's happening? We need to talk about your TPS reports.
Yeah, the cover sheet, I know.
Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo, and I understand the policy, and the problem is just that I forgot the one time, and I've already taken care of it, so it's not even really a problem anymore.
Yeah. It's just we're putting new cover sheets on all the TPS reports before they go out now, so if you could go ahead and try to remember to do that from now on. All right.
Yeah, this is when we go out in the woods and beat things and throw rocks and beat up the printer and bloody our knuckles, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's something I want to talk about the rest of this week as well, is reinventing ourselves if we're wanting to move on professionally to something else as well, right? Because a lot of times if we were stifling our mission, stifling a purpose, if we even know what that means, what's our purpose in life, and we're sitting in an office like this with 9 bosses and TPS reports and cover sheets and, Milton collating next to us, probably aren't feeling very fulfilled in our lives. That's where I was back in a cubicle in my 20s. And I escaped that through basically the years of the recession. I got out of that world and went into this world of what I'm doing now. So that's been over a decade at this point. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We will see you tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, just like every day, Monday through Friday. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. Have a great rest of your day.
It's sunshine, whose body burn hot. I'ma tell you about a woman who's cold as tundra with some frozen eyes. I can tell by the way she moves that she cares and it's lovely.